Good evening, and welcome to a special meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach held Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Delury.
Present.
Councilmember Mandel.
Present.
Councilmember Treston.
Here.
Vice President McGinnis is absent. President Bendo.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Donna Gaden and Corporation Counsel Richard Berrios. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
How about Dave? Why don't you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and long time no see for those of you that were here last night. So this is a special meeting just to hold a public hearing on the city opting out of allowing cannabis sales and on-site use. So with that, I guess let's get started. I think we have some.
Let me call I'll call the
Okay.
hearings. Public hearing number one, local law amending subpart C of related acts relating to the charter of the City of Long Beach regarding a local law opting out of licensing and establishing on-site cannabis consumption establishments within the City of Long Beach pursuant to Cannabis Law Section 131. And simultaneously, we're doing public hearing number two, local law amending subpart C of related acts relating to the charter of the City of Long Beach regarding a local law opting out of licensing and establishing retail cannabis dispensaries within the City of Long Beach pursuant to Cannabis Law Section 131.
Okay, and since the two are so closely tied together, we're going to basically treat them as a single public hearing for both issues, because the opting out does apply to both. So with that, I think we have some presentations we're going to get, so we'll let our clerk set up for that. We're probably going to have to move down.
Yeah, that's it.
Hello? It's on?
That's why I printed it, gave you the option either way.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah, I will be running a timer. When you hear the beep, that means your 10 minutes is up.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Rebecca Brown. I'm here from Green Thumb Industries. Green Thumb is a multi-state cannabis operator with a mission to promote well-being through the power of cannabis. We currently operate in 15 states, including New York. We have over 3,400 employees. We have 12 or 13 wholesale manufacturing facilities, and we operate 65 dispensaries. Here's just a little map of our operations. We have experience in multiple states, going from a medical-only market to a market where there is both medical and adult use sales. That has occurred so far in Illinois, Nevada, and Massachusetts. And then soon to be New Jersey, New York, Virginia, and several other states. So I'll skip right to where we are. We are currently operating in New York. We have three open dispensaries, one in Rochester, one in Half Moon, and one in Manhattan. We also, per our medical license, have the ability to open a store in Nassau County. Our hope is that that store would be a medical store and also have adult use sales. We understand that this is a new thing. New York has just recently legalized adult use cannabis, and various municipalities are having these same conversations to opt in or opt out. And we want to just be here to provide our perspective from having seen this in other states, and to be a resource and share some of the things that we've experienced. We also want to share that there are some real structural benefits in the MRTA and from a company perspective to having adult use sales in your community. The number one thing that I would point out is that the MRTA has a 3% retail sales tax that would go directly to the city of Long Beach or to any other municipality that opts in. This can be a pretty big number. In addition, there's a 1% sales tax right to Nassau County. As an employer, if we were to put a dispensary in this city, that would be 25 to 30 full-time jobs with benefits, including equity compensation at 12 months. We have a commitment to hiring locally and to being a part of the community in which we are situated. We also would bring significant investment in the form of construction, build-out, and just store fixtures and equipment to opening a store. And finally, we feel that as a company, we do best when we are in a community that is supportive and where, we want to go where we are wanted. And we want to be a good member, a good neighbor, a good member of the community, and, just give back in the same way, because we recognize that it's a privilege to operate in your town or your municipality or city. One of the things we do is our First Day Profits program, where we donate all of our First Day profits from any opening of any store, including an adult use store, to a local organization. We work directly with local stakeholders to identify something that would be a real need, and we contribute in that way. We also have ongoing community initiatives, days of service, and things like that. So I'll just show you, I have a couple pictures of sort of what a store might look like. This is not something where we have, glowing neon signs. We want to be a safe, accessible place for adult consumers to purchase cannabis. We're not trying to advertise to either underage people or people who are not interested. This is purely something that would, fit in with surrounding businesses and the local community. So here's just a couple of examples of, stores we have around the country. In addition, we try hard to have welcoming interiors that provide patients and, adult use consumers a comfortable place to be and to learn about cannabis. There is no on-site consumption permitted at our stores, though I know that consumption lounges are another portion of the law. And finally, security. Every store that we open and every dispensary that I've seen is 100% access controlled. We require identification from anyone who comes in. We make sure they're over 21 unless they're a patient or a specific pediatric patient. Everything's under 24/7 camera surveillance. All products are in child-proof containers and are tracked from seed to sale. We take it seriously. We take the prevention of diversion seriously and the prevention of this product getting into the hands of minors. And finally, we are aware there are a lot of concerns about the legalization of cannabis. Now, we aren't trying to wade into the debate about whether New York should legalize for adult use or not. That decision has been made. What we want to do is provide a safe, accessible way for adult consumers to purchase their cannabis, and that cannabis that has been tested and grown and cultivated, produced under New York law. So just some of the common concerns. Is cannabis a gateway drug? Studies have really shown that cannabis has allowed people to wean off of other drugs and other pharmaceuticals. In addition, there's a concern about increased crime. The studies really don't bear that out. And same with increased traffic fatalities. If you're interested in this topic, there's a really interesting literature review that the Cato Institute did in March of this year. I have the site up there, but I encourage you to look it up. And it showed that there was either limited or no relationship between legalization and either traffic fatalities, youth IQ, or increases in violent crime. In addition, there are studies that have shown really that youth rates of cannabis use do not rise when there is adult use legalization, and when there is access for adults to purchase the product. Again, we card everyone who comes through the door. It's not worth our license to make even one underage sale. The same is not always true of the illicit market, and so when you have more legal, accessible, regulated paths to purchase, that illicit market tends to dry up or move elsewhere. So I'm happy to take any questions. Hopefully I'm under the 10 minutes. But thank you for having me. Any questions? No? Okay. Got it. Okay.
Thank you, and I guess I'll start and see if there's any questions from, I know I have some, but I'll see if the other council members have any questions for our presenter. I can't see Don. Liz, Mike, you got any? Okay, I have a few. What would you say is the current size of the medical marijuana market in New York right now?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question, but I don't have statistics off the top of my head.
Okay,
I believe there's around 120,000 patients currently, but I would have to double check that statistic.
Okay, I just use the mic, please.
They want you to use the microphone.
I was just saying, I don't have that statistic offhand. I'm happy to provide it. But it is not large compared to New York's population, put it that way.
all right. Do you have any data on what percentage of adults currently use marijuana non-medically? I know that's kind of an underworld kind of crime stat, but
Sorry, I don't have that statistic.
Okay.
But it's all self-reported pretty much at this point. So
okay. Do you have any idea what the estimated size of the market would be in Nassau County?
no.
Not really. Okay. No,
Sorry.
that's fine. And then do you have any information on what percentage of Nassau County has opted out so far? Or conversely, if you don't have that, how many have not opted out? What percentage of the county would you say?
I'm aware of maybe 2 or 3 municipalities that I think have opted out. I know there have been a lot of conversations, but I don't think that many have officially opted out yet.
Okay.
But I know it's a hot topic.
All right. And when you set up a dispensary, obviously the zoning will control it to some degree where it goes,
Yes.
but do you have like a target type area you look for? I mean, I'm assuming you know well enough you're probably not going to go near a school or a church or a
Right.
playground or
Yeah, so the MRTA, prescribes a few things, such as 200 feet from churches, 500 feet from schools.
Right.
And then, we try our best to work with local officials and zoning administrators and, anyone else who has an important stake in the decision to go to a place where this is not going to be disruptive. Honestly, the number one thing that I think actually can eventuate if we are not careful, which we try to be, is a parking situation. So we always try to go somewhere where there's enough parking and a way to control the traffic flow, especially at the beginning and when there's only a couple of stores open. That's the most disruptive thing that I can honestly say that we've seen. But we also 100% comply with any local zoning restrictions, special use permits, setback requirements from the law or regulations.
okay. And then I guess since you operate in other states as well, what would you say have been some of the lessons learned in states that have like California, Colorado, other states that have legalized it earlier on, well, I guess I'll just say good and bad. What would you say some of the lessons learned have been?
Yeah, I think honestly the parking has been one of our number one lessons learned for us in locating. We don't want to be a disruption to other businesses. We don't want to have our customers getting in the way. That doesn't bode well for anyone, and we want to be respectful of that. So that's a lesson that we have learned. And you think you have enough parking, and maybe you don't. So I would say parking has been a big lesson. And other than that, everything is kind of case by case. But I would say one of the other big lessons that you kind of see is that adult use is a really big event the first day, and maybe the second day. And then it's sort of a non-issue. You have a lot of the same people purchasing cannabis who were purchasing it before, but they have an easier, more accessible, more regulated, often safer way to obtain it. But I think we've seen in Illinois, for example, there were some jurisdictions that opted out that are now talking about opting in. They see the revenue that's coming in, and they see that there are not spikes in crime and things like that, or increases in youth youth obtaining it.
Okay, and I guess in terms of how it's used, obviously, there's the form that could be smoked, there's a form that could be vaped, and then there's the edibles. How do people seem to be using it in the markets that have legalized it?
Yeah, great question. So we see about 50% of people still prefer the flower form, whether that's in a pre-rolled joint or, you know, in a jar of flour. And then the other 50% is divided. You know, edibles are probably, vape is probably around 30 or 40% of that remaining 50%. Vape's a big chunk. And then edibles, which can really span, depending on the state's definition, either tablets, capsules, gummies, tinctures, any other kind of oral consumption where you're kind of chewing it up and swallowing it.
Okay. And then I assume I haven't been in a dispensary, but I assume there's
We
various...
welcome you to visit one of our medical stores if you'd like.
Okay, but I'm assuming there's also various varieties that have various THC levels and things. So, I mean, are there, for lack, I don't know what the right term is, blends or
Yeah, so flower tends
varieties that...
Yeah, so there's multiple strains of flower which, you know, can provide different effects. Often, you know, there's not a ton of research. I mean, there's some research in the area, but the thought is that those effects are actually driven by terpenes and not the level of THC and by terpenes and other kind of plant compounds. And not necessarily does this have 18% THC or 23% THC. So people who are going to either treat a condition on the medical side or looking for an effect, like they want to relax or they want to feel a little more focused or whatever it is they're looking for on the adult use side, will often have a strain that they are looking for or that our patient care specialist can guide them towards. And then on the edible side, you know, the states often cap kind of the THC content that you can have in a concentrated or infused product. So that's all limited by the state laws.
So if I walked into a medical dispensary and then walked into I guess, a legal, non-medical dispensary, I mean, what would I see different in the two?
Again, this is very state by state, but honestly, very little.
Okay.
You wouldn't necessarily have a pharmacist consultation on the adult use side, and you might see products that have a slightly lower potency caps, meaning like sometimes on the medical side you're allowed to have a higher amount of THC in a product by regulation. But other than that, you know, our goal at least is that the experience is quite similar. You're coming in there for something that we're selling, and we want to do our best to educate you about it and help you make the most informed decision, whether you're a medical patient or an adult use consumer.
So once dispensaries are allowed to open, non-medical dispensaries, would you foresee the medical dispensaries pretty much shutting, or would just transition to be a general dispensary for both audiences?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it sort of remains to be seen how New York supports the medical program going forward. As a company that intends to be dual licensed as a medical operator and adult use, we remain fully committed to the medical program. We will have, a good percentage of our stores will be medical only. We encourage patients to sign up. They won't pay the tax rate. They won't have to pay the taxes. So there's a cost-effective reason to become a medical patient. There may be a day where there's insurance coverage or things like that, assistance programs for people to buy on the medical side. But it's a really hard thing to predict how that will go, because obviously there are steps to be taken to sign up as a medical patient, and you can walk in and as an adult use consumer and buy the same thing. So it just depends on your kind of dedication to the hurdles.
And as far as where the marijuana is sourced from, I guess I don't know the legalities of if you can bring it across state lines. Does it have to be grown in New York to be sold in New York?
Yes, everything that would be sold in one of these dispensaries in New York will be grown 100% in New York as of now.
Okay.
Federal law could change, but right now everything is single state. So we couldn't bring it across state lines, and neither could anyone else.
Now, do you anticipate there being any farms on Long Island, or would most of them probably go upstate?
I couldn't speak for what other people are going to do.
Okay. All right. I think I'm done with my questions.
Yeah.
I just have a quick couple of questions. touching upon something you said regarding parking flow, do you know, if you know, what the average amount of time a customer spends in the facility and how that impacts on traffic and parking?
I don't have any statistics on that. I can tell you from, being in the stores and seeing people, it's anywhere from 5 minutes for someone who's ordered in advance, which has become very popular during COVID. We do a lot of pre-orders online. We're willing to do phone consultations for people who are interested in, having a conversation but don't want to come in the store. Those people spend 5 minutes. But we have medical patients who've spent up to an hour with our pharmacist. So I don't have an average, but, it's probably 20 minutes if you're coming in on the adult use side and you kind of have some idea of what you want. But don't hold me to that one. It's not statistical data.
And my understanding is because of federal restrictions, there is no credit, everything is cash. Is that accurate?
It is cash. There are some debit card solutions that, there are some that we're investigating as a company, and I know there are other companies that have those too.
Okay, thank you.
Just, sorry, for one I forgot to ask. Do you have any data on the average tax income from the sale? I mean, granted, New York is probably different than other states, but what they're seeing elsewhere where it's legal?
Yes, I did. I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're a public company, so I really can't provide specific. Oh, go ahead.
So,
if I could just provide, I can get you a whole list of kind of things that other states have put out based on the revenues.
Okay.
I'd rather do that than
Yeah,
misstate
that's fine.
anything.
That would be fine.
But
Thank
I'm happy
you.
to send that over, and you can post it or whatever.
No, that's fine. I know you may not have everything at your fingertips.
Yeah, sorry. And I
that's fine.
closed it up thinking there were no questions, and I apologize.
That's fine. Okay. Liz, Mike, you got any questions? Okay. So what we're going to do is we have 3 presenters. We're going to let the 3 do it, and then we'll open it up to the public. So thank you. And why don't we have our next presenter?
But you're going to get back to the council with those questions, correct? Okay. I got it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki Cateman. I'm the Political and Communications Director of Local 338, or WDSU, UFCW. We represent approximately 13,000 working people across New York State, including 200 who live and work here in the city of Long Beach. Local 338 members are employed in a variety of different industries, including the cannabis industry, where they are employed across the entire supply chain as working in cultivation and farming, manufacturing and processing, distribution, and at retail dispensaries. I've been working on cannabis policy in New York State for about a decade now, and I'm proud to speak on behalf of the cannabis members we represent, which is about 80% of the industry here in New York State. With the recent legalization of adult use cannabis, misinformation about dispensaries can lead to the loss of opportunity for responsible operators, jobs, and economic infusion they can bring to a community. As the union in New York State representing cannabis workers, we bring a unique perspective to the industry and those who work in the industry, as well as can ease concerns we've heard from community members over the years we've been working on this issue. First, I'd like to share with you the economic realities of working in the cannabis industry in New York State. Through our collective bargaining agreements, we have built a standard for what these jobs can and should be, full-time family-sustaining careers. Our members receive guaranteed wage increases each year, and starting salaries for dispensary workers range from $18 to $22 an hour, with pharmacists at these dispensaries starting between $60 to $65 an hour, and members at cultivation and manufacturing facilities starting between $18 to $25 an hour. Local 338 members also receive quality health insurance that includes dental and optical for themselves and their families at no cost to them, generous paid time off standards, retirement benefits, and access to scholarships and no-cost college degrees, amongst other critical on-the-job protections. We believe that by investing in our members, we can help shape an industry that provides opportunities for growth and can support not only our members, but their families as well. Quality careers also means a low turnover rate and workers who care deeply about adhering to the rigorous regulations and standards of an industry like cannabis. The adult use market is expected to generate over $300 million for the state annually. Communities who opt in will receive revenue from a 3% point of sales tax that is expected to generate $75 million annually for local municipalities. However, this does not fully capture the scope of economic output that will be generated from adult use cannabis businesses, including dispensaries. The creation of new jobs directly in the industry, as well as those that develop in ancillary businesses like legal, accounting, and in construction and maintenance, will also create other sources of revenue, including through payroll taxes and providing a boost for local economies as workers spend their end earnings at local businesses, and in some cases, moving into the communities in which they work. Municipalities and states that have already legalized adult use cannabis and welcome dispensaries have seen an increase in foot traffic in their communities, leading to an increase in spending at local restaurants and businesses. We know that not everyone has had the opportunity to visit a cannabis dispensary, so now I'd like to more or less take you inside one to understand the actual day-to-day of what it's like. First, it's important to understand that cannabis dispensaries today are not the head shops you might have seen in movies. They're clean, bright, and modern, and often look like discreet Apple stores, as Rebecca showed in her slideshow. In many cases, if you didn't already know if a cannabis dispensary was located nearby, you might not even realize it was there, as is the case with many cannabis dispensary locations here on Long Island. Workers at cannabis dispensaries do not view their jobs as simply selling cannabis to a client. They're trained in the science of the product so they can educate consumers on what they're taking and help them find the product that best suits their needs and to ensure they're using cannabis safely and effectively. Every medical dispensary is required to have a state-certified pharmacist on site who are required to take a training mandated by the state that educates pharmacists entering the cannabis industry on the science of the plant and its proper utilization. However, all workers, regardless of whether they have a pharmacy degree or not, are required to undergo extensive training as a condition of being hired. The training is constant, and all pharmacists and frontline retail dispensary staff are required to take weekly and sometimes daily trainings to update and enhance product knowledge, refresh understanding of cannabis science, and keep workers informed on the latest developments in cannabis research. Members of Local 338 have previous experience working in retail pharmacies and have shared with us that at previous roles, they would only get a few minutes at a time with a client. However, in a retail dispensary setting, they're able to spend 20 to 30 minutes one-on-one with clients, many of whom are new to cannabis, educating them on how to use it and how it may help with a variety of different applications. Another aspect of working in a dispensary is that workers are required to be up to date on New York State's regulations and security standards, including knowing who can and cannot enter the dispensary. They know the consequences of violating the standards set by the state, and frankly, additional compliance protocols set by the medical cannabis companies themselves. Workers are not interested in losing their job, nor are their employers interested in losing their license to operate. In order for someone to enter a dispensary, they must have a Department of Health issued medical cannabis ID card, or if they're guests with a client, be over 21. And the dispensary staff can verify their age and track their visitor within a company log. Clients with a medical cannabis ID card are scanned into a DOH track software along with their purchases and into a program that operates similar to iStop. The cannabis products themselves are stored in a safe and only removed upon a purchase. The product is then scanned into a tracking software that prints a label that includes the name of the client and their medical provider, the issue and expiration date, and instructions on how to use the product. Since cannabis is a controlled substance, workers at dispensaries follow strict guidelines in storage and dispensing, including a daily inventory. There is no room for errors. This applies even before a product is dispensed to clients. All deliveries of products from the cultivation facility are tracked and arrived in a secure tote with security tags, and workers must confirm what's on the manifest matches what's in the delivery and that products have not been tampered with. Again, there's no room for error, and while we don't know what the exact details of what security measures will be in the state regulations, based on protocols already in place in the medical cannabis program, as well as standard practices in other states, we can expect security measures to be comparable and to not be less secure. New York State has created the pathway for consumers to legally purchase regulated and clearly labeled cannabis products. All products are tested by the New York State Wadsworth Lab and must have must clear a number of different rigorous tests before they are released for sale to ensure their safety and that they are free of any contaminants. The reports from these tests are available to all clients, and there is always a dispensary staff member ready to explain what they mean. The products themselves are dispensed in packaging that is childproof and meets poison control standards. They have labels that list the THC per dose and per container and how to store the product. The packaging also includes warnings to keep out of reach of children, that products can impair the ability to drive, and advising pregnant and breastfeeding women to not use cannabis. Additionally, dispensary workers are required to include a detailed product insert with purchases that outline information including on proper use, side effects, and disposal. Within the statute of the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, dispensaries will continue to be mandated to make sure reports are available to the public and that packaging lists the THC count. The underground cannabis markets can be dangerous. Consumers don't know what's in the product they receive or if they're safe, unlike legal cannabis, which is lab tested. By opting in, you're not just bringing new jobs and businesses to your community, but you're ensuring that users have a safe place to purchase regulated and tested cannabis. They can ask questions and receive answers from employees who know what they're talking about and can help people make the right decisions when they're making their purchases. Workers at cannabis dispensaries will be the first to tell you they want people to be comfortable and with what they're buying and to make sure they know how to safely use the legal cannabis product they purchase. The reality is there are already people employed in the cannabis industry in New York, and we can learn from what's already happening across the industry, and that as workers and their cannabis business operators are subject to rigorous standards and protocols, something we can all expect in the adult use program. Workers are well trained in state regulatory standards and security requirements, including who can and cannot enter, and they are working with products that are safely grown, lab tested, and thoroughly labeled. Our members are well versed in the science of cannabis and are already providing counseling and detailed education to consumers on how to use it safely and effectively. We have not seen a single instance of diversion or negative impact on the communities in which cannabis facilities and dispensaries operate. Most importantly, provisions that ensure the opportunity for good union careers in the industry. Workers feel invested in by their employer and in turn are invested in where they work, making it less likely to jeopardize their employment by neglecting or violating state laws and regulations. While we may not know the specifics of the regulations yet, cannabis dispensaries are and will be heavily regulated by the state, right down to their advertising and window displays. Currently, these businesses are almost unrecognizable unless you know what you're looking for due to their discreet look. We should not be stigmatizing legitimate businesses, and workers and customers should feel safe and comfortable at dispensaries. The state has given municipalities like yours the opportunity to opt out. However, if you decide to do so, you're turning down the opportunity to bring jobs and businesses to your community, as well as new revenue. Cannabis consumption will still be legal regardless. All right, I will end there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Didn't have much more.
You were full throttle there.
There is a lot to get through when you're talking about workers in this industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, any questions from any of the council members? Go ahead, Liz.
Is it possible that, because I know it was rapid fire for you, that you could send over to our email your speech so we could see the statistics that you mentioned?
100%.
Thank you.
Nikki, is it?
Yes.
Where have you presented that data to any other municipality in Nassau County or Suffolk County? Have you presented?
Yes, we have.
Could you tell me where?
Sure. We've presented it at the town of North Hempstead. We presented it at the town of Islip. We will be presenting it at the town of Huntington. We're meeting with the town of Hempstead. We've also presented it outside of Nassau County too, which I just realized I mentioned, but we presented it to the major towns within Nassau County.
Have you presented in Riverhead?
We shared comments with Riverhead.
Okay. Of those entities that you named, could you tell me who has opted in?
Riverhead has opted in.
Right.
Yep. North Hempstead and Hempstead have not made a determination yet, and Huntington is determining this week.
And no villages or,
We have not at Villages. We've spoken to the Village of Valley Stream.
okay, thank you.
Do you have any estimates on being conservative on the low end with a lot of municipalities opting out, and on the other end where not as many do, on job creation because of this?
So in Nassau County, so statewide, they're saying 30 to 60,000. In Nassau County, I've seen the figure around 7,000 jobs.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the council? All right, thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I guess we have one more speaker.
Thank you. Who's next?
Yeah. Why is he walking out?
Judy,
What's that?
because you're out of Zoom.
This isn't any, what? I want everything lowered, Mike, for sure, if you could. Usually there's something standing under there that I could at least stand on. That's great.
That's too low, Mike.
How's that? That work? Okay. Good evening. I'm Judy Vining, Director of Long Beach Aware, a state-funded prevention agency providing resources, research, and up-to-date documentation and information for the community as well as for this body. While I found the previous presentations interesting and in some ways could in fact counter much of what was said in terms of research, that's not why I'm here tonight. Although we do question, honestly, why a hearing held for what this community wants for this community is not solely for the community, and why people with no vested interest other than to make money out of the community are presenting. That's just a question. You don't need to answer. That said, we're here tonight.
Wait. Ms. Vining,
yes.
hang on for 1 second. The purpose of this hearing is to give people both sides of the story so people can come to an educated conclusion. So I would ask you please refrain from saying that only one side of the argument matters, because we're here to give people information to let them make an educated decision on their own and then provide input to us as their representatives.
Understood. Understood. As I said, I was not saying one side of the story should only be heard. What I was saying is that a local community where we want local people to make local decisions should be priority. That's just an opinion, okay? That said, we are here tonight to ask that the City Council enact legislation which would allow the City of Long Beach to opt out of the MRTA Act before December 31st of 2021. As you are aware, if a city, town, or village does not opt out by that date, it can never again, never, have the opportunity to do so. The converse, however, is not true. At any time after you opt out, you have the ability to opt in forever. Our stance and ask is a rather simple one. We have no reason at all to rush to judgment. I was actually on a statewide call yesterday with the Office of Addiction Supports and Services and the Office of Cannabis Management. It was really quite eye-opening, and it was a statewide call, not just prevention providers, people from all over the state. According to the Office of Cannabis Management on that call, they do not anticipate awarding any licenses for sales or consumption sites prior to the end of 2022 at the earliest, and with any anticipated tax revenue coming in early 2023 at the earliest. Their estimation, not ours. To quote from the presenter of the Office of Cannabis Management, Learning from other states, one estimate suggests that it will take at least 18 months for adult use programs to launch. By the way, 18 months from October 21, which is when the office was first staffed, is April of 2023. Whoops. The reason is very simple. They have yet to write any of the regulations that would govern the MRTA, and even when they do issue regulations, there is a process by which the proposed regulation is posted on the cannabis website, cannabis management board website, and then you have 60 days, a 60-day window for public commentary, and then they can come back and revise according to whatever the public inputs, and then there's another 45 days after that. So you can see how this gets to be a time-consuming, careful process, which it ought to be. So you can see how they easily see how they don't anticipate anything being granted anytime soon. What we urge the city to opt out so that the time it does take for all this to unfold, the city can react and respond to any and all of the proposed regulations. Whoops, sorry. Usually there's a... and make an informed decision as to whether it is what is best for the health, safety, and well-being of those living in Long Beach, youth and adults. Such decision-making should take into account that the only way that all of the citizens of Long Beach can be assured of having a voice in our community is for the city council to opt out. Only then can a citizen or citizens or group of citizens of this city ask the council to put sale and consumption sites on a ballot for a referendum. This includes having verified signatures of 10% of the electorate who voted in the last gubernatorial election. Without opting out, the community themselves can only say what comes from these hearings, and that really doesn't represent 35,000 people, at least not in my opinion. There are other considerations. It is not permissible, if you don't opt out, to only opt out of certain parts of the MRTA, okay? Provisions of the law as it now stands, for example, home delivery, home growth edibles. Those are all ironclad within the law itself. You cannot pick and choose. You can't cherry pick what you like. You're either in or out with the possibility of opting back in. Marijuana cannot be sold in stores licensed for consumption. It can only be sold in stores licensed for sales. Medical and recreational marijuana or non-medical marijuana will be blended into one dispensary site as per MRTA. Marijuana cannot be sold or consumed in stores or bars or restaurants where alcohol is sold or consumed. According to the Cannabis Management Board, right now, the post-legalization period and prior to the establishment, this is a quote, of a regulated marketplace is a challenging time for public health. Since this exactly is the position we're in right now, it would certainly behoove the city to take the prudent step of opting out of MRTA now while it is still an option. In addition, the Cannabis Management Board acknowledges that it will take some of its actions based on what has gone on before in other states and from research into public health, and we applaud them for that. We are not nearly the only community that is wrestling with or has wrestled with this issue. For example, 2019 data from the California, Colorado, and Oregon, which are required to monitor it on a yearly or bi-yearly basis, 80% of the California municipalities have opted out or did not opt in, however their law reads. 64% of Colorado municipalities did not opt in, and 60% of Oregon municipalities did not opt in. In Michigan, where the non-medical sales began only in December of 2019, more than 1,400 of their 1,773 municipalities opted out. equaling approximately 79%. Furthermore, our youth are at greater risk in legalized communities and states. In 2018, over half of the marijuana-related calls to the Rocky Mountain Poison Control Center, over half of the calls were marijuana-related. In Colorado, youth marijuana ED visits increased 54% from 2013 to 2017. There was a 25% increase in cannabis use disorder amongst 12 to 17-year-olds, according to Serta et al. From the American Journal of Pediatrics. 2019 study by Bertha Madras, PhD, MD from Harvard, found that parental marijuana use increases the likelihood of youth use of marijuana as well as it increases their risk of tobacco and opioid use. A 2019 study found that the cannabis use in adolescents leads to a 30% increased chance of developing depression as a young adult, and a 50% increase in suicidal thoughts, and a 3.5-fold increase in suicidal attempts. That's according to Gobi et al. And the American Journal of Psychiatry. I could continue to cite study after study from the CDC, NIDA, National Household Drug and Alcohol Study, but that really is not the point of tonight. Horrifying as the numbers may be, you already get that point. Tonight is about asking you to do something that has absolutely no risk to the community at all, none. There will be no stores for marijuana sales or for marijuana consumption to any municipality until at least April of 2023. Therefore, there will not be any anticipated tax revenue either. So we again ask you, for the sake of our community and for those of us who live here, please do not remove our chance to choose our own destiny. Opting out by 12/31/21 is the way that you, the people elected to be the guardians of our health and our safety, and that of the citizens of Long Beach, can fulfill that duty. We are grateful to the Long Beach Board of Education, the Central Council PTA, and so many others who are urging you to make a common sense decision with absolutely no downside at all. As you know, Island Park, Lynbrook, Freeport, Rockville Center have already enacted opting out legislation. The town of Hempstead has it on for discussion and with the intent of voting on it on December 7th at 10:30 in the morning.
All right. Judy, can you?
I can finish in a minute. I have one.
Time has expired.
We can't give you more time than the other speakers.
I
so-
understand that. I really do. I'm
So,
just gonna
but what I
finish.
would appreciate, if it's okay, can you send us, because you had some data in there that would be good to have, and would you be okay with us posting that?
I have no problem with you posting.
Okay,
it.
so people can also have access to that information?
Absolutely. You know, the one thing I want to say to you, Mr. Bendo, is our mission has always been to make Long Beach a safer place for families and communities. The city of Long Beach has always been a part of that, and we hope you continue to be so.
Right, and I think I think almost most people in the city are well aware of AWARE's mission. Let me just ask a question, because a lot of what you talk about is related to what happens when someone has access or has the marijuana. And whether we opt out or not, there will be places that don't opt out, namely New York City. So people will be able to, quite frankly, drive over the bridge into the Rockaways probably and get it there. Let's even say we do opt out, and whether a referendum happens or not, you know, to be determined. But let's even say we do opt out. What do you think the impact will be still? Because like I said, it's not going to be here.
Absolutely, it's legal.
It will still be here because it's legal.
Okay.
So what do you anticipate?
The impact will still be more people driving, frequenting our restaurants, interacting with our community under the influence of a mood-altering substance. We also know from all the research for every substance that the more use there is in a community or not, the more youth use there is as well. And so you would anticipate a black market, because that's what's gone on in almost every legalized state, because quite frankly, if you can grow 6 plants, are you going to really go to a store? You don't have to. Why would you pay taxes? And the black market is much less expensive, certainly much less regulated. But in states like California, for example, the state attorney general, I think it was last year, if not the year before, I kind of lost a year for COVID, set out a statement saying although they are regulating the dispensaries, they do not have enough personnel, so they can only have gotten to, in the past, whatever it was, 2 years, 3% of the dispensaries. So while the regulations, when they come, may be there, they're not necessarily as protective as you may think.
Okay. Now, the law, even if we opt out, will allow people, if I understand correctly, they can grow their own here in Long Beach. They could have 3 mature plants and 3
6, yeah.
young plants.
Mhm.
So people could effectively home grow it
Absolutely.
and not have to go to a dispensary.
Absolutely.
And that will be legal.
Yeah, I mean, that ship has sailed. It is
Yeah.
legal. It's technically, by the way, as one of the previous presenters said, it not yet legal in New York because there
Correct.
are no stores that are licensed.
Right.
So anybody that is smoking on the boardwalk or dabbing, and by the way, when we look at kids, we look at that because they mostly vape and they mostly dab, and there's nothing in the MRTA that limits the amount of THC in anything.
Okay. All right. Do any other council members have questions for Ms. Vining?
Okay. Thank
Right.
you.
Thanks, Judy. I'm sure people are going to have questions. Ms. Brown, you said? Okay, so Ms. Brown, I believe, has to leave because she has to catch a plane. So I assume you have to leave now? Okay. So why don't we open it up to to the public? Unlike typical good and welfare, we're just going to have people raise their hands. And so why don't we have this gentleman here come up? Yeah.
No, come up.
Yeah, please come to the microphone because then the people
can use
watching
mine.
online streaming can hear you.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Gordon Sandmeyer, 507 East State Street. And I'm confident the council understands the, opting out versus opting in and not, so that's not even the issue. And I'll state it out, I'm not a prude, I indulge now and again. But a couple of points that I want to make that maybe people aren't thinking of, because the presentation that was made, I didn't hear anything, or we heard very little about the benefit of opening a dispensary in town. Some of the benefits that they listed are quite comical. Bringing foot traffic because of a dispensary in town. This is the only oceanfront city on Long Island. We have no problem getting foot traffic here because we have the Atlantic Ocean there and the boardwalk. So that's one issue. As a property owner, that's really only my concern, is what's the benefit, okay? One dispensary in town is going to bring in tax revenue that's going to help the city out. Please, it's not going to happen. I work in the wine and spirits industry. I worked for the largest distributor in the U.S. for 20 years, and I'm very aware of how the state and the state liquor authority is going about handing out these licenses. The licenses are not going to be very many, okay? So unless we plan on opening the floodgates and having a bunch of dispensaries in town, like we have bars in town, where we're going to get significant tax revenue, opening one dispensary doesn't do anything for us. You mentioned Riverhead. Okay, Riverhead is a township as well as a city. Is it the city of Riverhead or is it the township of Riverhead? Because Riverhead has multiple industrial, commercial zones. They have industrial zones. So if they opened up in Riverhead in an industrial zone, that's fine. But I'm sure they're not putting it in downtown, and that's a consideration here. So we don't need it in Long Beach when we have industrial zones right across the bridge in Island Park that you could open up. This is New York. There's transient commerce all over the place. Yeah, I like to shop in Macy's at Roosevelt Field. It doesn't mean I need a Macy's in Long Beach. I can drive to Roosevelt Field to get it if I need to go shop at Macy's or Bloomingdale's. You know, jobs. The town right now is begging for people to get to work. The restaurants in town can't find people to hire. So we don't need more jobs. We need more workers. And I just think it's too important of an issue to, with all due respect to the council, for the community to decide. I think it should be on a ballot memorandum, that we can all decide on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, in case I didn't say it, for people that might be there first time, you get 3 minutes for your remarks, and because I didn't tell you that when you started. Oh, yeah, before we go, because I know Mr. Lester's got his hand up, some other people, just quickly, does anybody have any questions specifically for Ms. Brown so she could go and catch her plane? We're going to put her presentation up online, which has all the, the data she talked about. But if any,
some of the studies too.
Okay.
One question, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a revenue projection for the location?
Yeah, so we're a publicly traded company, so I can't provide any store-specific revenue projections. That said, looking at the industry itself and what the economic impact overall that we've projected for Long Beach if they opt in, and surrounding municipalities don't all opt in as well, it's in the 7 figures of revenue each year, of tax revenue. But okay.
Okay. Any other? Because like I said, she has a plane to catch. Roy? Well, it depends which
I'm
one.
happy to. It's LaGuardia, but that's okay.
LaGuardia.
It's all right.
LaGuardia is not that close.
No.
And you got to get on the Van Wyck, which is a nightmare.
This is
Nobody beats the Van Wyck.
No.
Okay. Listen, this is supposed to be a hearing about amending a local law. It's not supposed to be a hearing about how much you can make on this, what the benefits of cannabis are, what the workers are going to get paid, how good it is for the workers, anything like that. It's about amending a local law to give us, the people, the right to choose. That's what this is about. You said nothing about whether you felt that we should have that right or not. You had a 20-minute presentation, and you never once said anything about the opting out. I understand there are benefits to marijuana, there are detriments to it. I understand that. That's a great thing to bring up when it comes before the public. Do you feel that the public should have a say?
I'm not really sure how to address that.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but that's what this hearing is about. This is what this hearing's about, not about the benefits of marijuana.
What this hearing is about is to give the people of Long Beach information on both sides of the issue, whether we should opt out or not.
The issue.
That's what this is about.
Right.
I get it. Your opinion is this should be a referendum. That is your opinion.
That's your opinion too.
Okay.
You said that too.
But
that's Mike's opinion too. We all, during the debates, we all said the people should decide.
Okay.
And that's why this is here today, amending the local law just for the issue of opting out. Just for the issue of whether the people should have a say.
Roy, I need to interrupt you for one moment. At a public voting, League of Women's Voters, I said I think there should be a public hearing on this issue.
Okay, so the point is, the public still needs information so they can make an educated decision. That is what part of this process is about. Now, I get maybe you don't think that's part of the process right now, but that's a decision we as a council made, that we want to give people information so they can make an educated decision.
John, what is the issue?
And then once they provide us with their input, we as a council will decide opting in, opting out. Some of us have already expressed our opinion on this matter, you're correct. But that said, That doesn't mean we shouldn't be giving the people of Long Beach the information for them to make an educated decision.
Decision on what, John? Whether the people can vote or not. That's what the
No.
opting out has to do with.
No, you see, what you're doing is you're equating opt-out automatically means referendum.
Yes.
That's not the case. No, it doesn't, because there is a process that has to be gone through to have that referendum.
Right.
Which means somebody has to get petitions and has to do these
But they
things.
don't have that right, John, if you don't opt out. In
That
other
is-
words, if you
that is
don't opt
correct.
out, they never have that right. You would be depriving them of that right to have a referendum if you didn't opt out.
Correct.
That is correct. We all agree.
Right, so that's what this hearing's about, the right of the people to make a decision.
No, this hearing is about giving people information. I don't know what you,
Well, look
Not
at
registering
look
with
at
that.
the addendum. It's about amending a local law
correct.
for the opting out.
And
And
we
the
want
reason-
their opinion on opting out, which means giving them information to make an educated decision so they can give us their input on whether we should opt out.
But
There
I
are
had-
probably people sitting in the room right now that don't want us to opt out. I don't
Well,
know that.
they didn't say that. That's what I'm asking. That's why I asked the question directly. I asked the question directly. Should we, are you against us opting out? The only one who spoke about that was Judy.
Okay, but first of all, that is not their decision.
I'm not saying it's their decision. I'm saying you say to give their opinion. I'm asking what their opinion is.
All right.
And I didn't hear it. All I heard was marijuana's good,
Okay,
it'll
well,
employ people
look,
and stuff
I mean,
like that. The
Look,
question of
you'll be
opting
sitting
out.
up here soon enough. If you're going to criticize everybody that comes up to give the council
I'm not
information.
criticizing. I asked a
it's-
question, John. That's what this hearing's supposed to be about.
Okay. Well, then if you have additional, I'm sure you have time left. If you have additional
54
input,
seconds.
feel free to give it.
I'm just saying, you read the agenda. That's what this hearing's supposed to be about.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? I see this gentleman right here. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, this woman's been raising her hand. This young woman right here. Oh, sorry, we'll get to you.
Gentlemen.
Yeah.
You could raise it so it.
Oh, hell yeah. I got the control now.
Your
Yeah, just
name.
please give your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Adam Ali. I am of 124 Roosevelt. Unfortunately, it's not Long Beach, but I'm here to give my opinion on cannabis. I love the town of Long Beach. My after prom was here on the boardwalk, and it was super fun. And yes, people will come here no matter what because the beach is awesome and Long Beach is awesome. So shout out Long Beach. But I just like to say that there are going to be a ton of people giving tons of opinions about cannabis. Like, I am personally in the cannabis industry, a budding entrepreneur trying to get into the space. And what the gentleman said before was right. Like, they're going to be giving these licenses out like they gave tax medallions, like back in the day when they were like $10 million and, a bunch of hoops to jump through. The cost of licenses will not be that much for all the people in the audience. But the amount of regulations and the amount of things that are going to go into getting a license, it might as well be $10 million because it's very, very difficult. But beyond any of that, my advice for anybody about cannabis, read the MRTA. Just read it. Everybody has so many divisive opinions about it. And a big thing is that this is modeled after, yes, other states that have legalized cannabis, but also after their shortcomings. I went to college in Boston, and I saw CMR 935 rise and turn from a question on the ballot to a law, and then it was my senior year of college, so I, bugged off and I just walked to the State House and I sat and I heard them create the CMR 935, their taxation act on cannabis over there. And yeah, what the last presenter said was true. Like, you have to sit there, it's public, they're subject to the open meeting law, so they need to have times of public comment, but because of COVID, you have to do it virtually. So they're leaving it open for 30 to 60 days and then allowing for public comment. And yes, it's going to take a real, real long time. But with the question of opting in or out, yes, the state just gave you guys a momentous task of deciding this. And with that comes zoning and a lot of factors that, in fact, the town can control. So, you know, leave it up to the people of the town, and then also leave it in your power too to read the MRTA, and then let the public know like what you guys can influence in cannabis being in your town. So how will cannabis look in Long Beach could be decided by you guys, not by the Office of Cannabis Management as much. So just, you know, read the MRTA. That's all I'll say.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I saw Ms. Posterly. Yeah, I know. But he didn't put his hand up right away.
Hi. Okay.
Oh, and while she's getting set up, I should just mention that, and Ms. Vining did allude to this, but the City Council did receive a letter from the Long Beach Board of Education requesting that we opt out, and we also received a memo from the Public Safety Commission, which is one of the commissions we have stood up that's made up of residents. They also have sent us a memo requesting that we opt out. So I just wanted to make people aware of that.
And that will go, President Bendo, that will go in the record so people will be able to read this
Correct.
letter from the school district and from...
We will post those.
Thank you.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Tina Posterly, Long Beach. I just had a couple, basic things. I wasn't able to get to the first presenter with the question I had in regard to parking. Maybe if she's following up with you all, if somebody could ask, what I would really like to know is the dynamic of the parking in some of the states that they have had. She said there were lessons learned, but I don't know if they quite compare to what our challenges are with space for these shops as well as parking here. So I'd like to see anything that she has on that. But the other part too is I know that this was put on Facebook and things like that. I would love to see the opportunity for more folks to hear more about these different aspects of what's being presented, like, what was here tonight and, the value of opting out. And as we know, we have a certain segment of the population that comes here and, we got to reach some more folks, because if we do the opt-out, people are going to have decisions before them. So that's all, just increasing ways for people to see it and the parking dynamic. And that's it.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, let me just ask, the gentleman back there with the mask on, with the same hairdo as me. You had your hand up earlier. Okay. All right, this gentleman right here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carmine Fiore, CEO, owner of Ivy Botanicals, also a disabled Army veteran, also a veteran of the New York City Fire Department. All right, I have something prepared over here. All right. Some objections, that we've heard. We've heard a lot about parking. We've heard objections about minors. Let me just go from here. All right, regarding preventing sales to children, right? Preventing child access to retail dispensaries is quite easy. Article 4, Section 85, subsection 2 of the MRTA states, no licensee shall sell any cannabis products to anyone under 21. This is done through a through-step verification process that every cannabis dispensary in the country uses. You get checked in at the door, and you get checked in at the register. If at any moment the state or federal issued ID does not work upon scanning, the consumer will not be allowed to enter or purchase any cannabis products. Let me also bring you guys' attention to Article 4, Section 78 of the MRTA, that states the responsibilities of retail locations they must adhere to, which include adopting and maintaining a strict security system, adopting and maintaining a strict tracking system, adopting and maintaining a strict record-keeping system, adopting and maintaining a strict surveillance system, and also adopt record-keeping related to cannabis sales. Everything has to be compliant and tracked. So by having a retail dispensary, the town undercuts the illegal cannabis market. And by preventing the illegal sales of cannabis on the black market, children will have access to acquiring that type of black market cannabis. By opting out of cannabis sales, the naturally curious minds of children will have a larger access to cannabis on the illegal market. And let me remind you that the cannabis on the illegal market is not tested for chemicals, hard metals, or other lethal substances that can be dangerous to any consumer. Article 4, Section 86 of the MRTA states that any marketing, the very small amount that is allowable, cannot be marketed towards children or be appealing to anyone less than 21. Everyone in this room knows that driving while intoxicated is a horrible decision, right? Let's talk about that topic, driving while intoxicated, right? We all know that's a horrible decision. We also know that the #1 prevention for driving while intoxicated is education. All right, so every retail dispensary in the country, especially the county, let's talk about Nassau County, will be an education and safety center for cannabis for cannabis products, cannabis consumers, or cannabis education. Then there is the argument of opting out and waiting to see what other towns on Long Island are doing and how the towns react to cannabis sales. All right, we are lucky that the other side of the country is 10 years ahead of us. We have all the data, all the statistics that we need to make an educated decision. All right, so now the fact that the board or the trustee has, it's not about whether we're allowing cannabis in or out, because cannabis is here. All right, we already know that cannabis is here. Anywhere that tobacco is able to be smoked, cannabis is able to be smoked. All right, so you will be seeing people walking down the street smoking a joint. All right, I did have a question for the board, though. Would I be able to ask a question or no?
Sure, go ahead.
What were your particular concerns regarding opting into cannabis sales?
I can't speak for the board, so.
Is the board's lawyer here that I could ask?
Well, he's right there, but.
What were the town's concerns regarding opting in? And I also know a lot of towns are taking a stance of let's wait and see what other towns are doing and just not do anything, and then we could opt in at a later date. I strongly urge you guys against that, because there's no guarantee that you're going to get a license, period. And you can also, like the other guy said, the MRTA states where you can put these dispensaries. So there's a lot, the MRTA has a lot of safeguards for the towns.
Okay.
But again, to that question, what were
I
some of the concerns?
I can't really speak to the intent of the council individually. If they want to answer individually on their own, that's one thing. I think the purpose of us starting this public hearing today and not waiting for the last possible minutes to start that discussion and start that dialogue. And that's, you've heard from President Bendo that the purpose is to kind of get information and get information out to everyone else. But they haven't, no one in every meeting I've been at hasn't voiced a particular concern or worry.
Well, I thank you for your...
Could we also potentially post a copy of the MRTA
Absolutely.
up there as well?
I have
so people
link.
can easily access it and have all...
Summaries, because a bunch of county associations and...
yeah, NICOM and others have written summaries on it, and those might be useful for people to have so they don't have to read 60 pages of legalese necessarily. Okay, any more comments from the...
Crystal Lake, hope everyone is well. This particular matter, for, against, yay or nay, this is a matter that will be with, in addition to that our children we are plagued by, those should be addressed as well. The type of substances that are sold, not sold, this is such a, we must take all of those things into consideration and it's extremely hard to decide for me. Well, I'm a reader, so I need a great deal of both sides of material to make a better decision. Will come into play somewhere down the line. It just should never, that should never come into play. Disproportionate burdens that already exist. So, having said that, I really need, but sometimes having the document, you can print it out, I'm aware of all of that, but come and bring the pamphlets, come and bring the information. If you're truly serious about something, I'm going to feed your decision. Yay or nay, both sides. I would really like people to come more prepared, being able to answer more questions, not just the questions that's your area of expertise, be better prepared. So thank you for your time, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Lake. Legislator Ford.
Just in case. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you very much for letting me address you. Denise Ford. I live here in the city of Long Beach. I was happy that I was able to make this forum and to hear the presenters. And all I can say is this is a very, very important subject or initiative that is going to be brought into our city, whether or not you opt in or opt out. I think that we need to let our residents truly know whether or not it's to their benefit to allow cannabis sales in the city or not. I am not debating whether or not if cannabis should be legal or should it be sold here or not. It's not really up to just me. I think it's up to the residents also to be fully aware of the impact that it's going to have in their neighborhoods. And, exactly, Ms. Lake, when you talked about where they would sell it, of course, the industrial area would come to mind. But, and that's something that you wouldn't have any control over. What I'm asking you, as somebody who sits in government like I do, that really consider, the impact that it is going to have. That when we look at this, we don't know where the stores are going to be. We don't know how many stores there are. They paint a very beautiful, rosy picture of, beautiful storefronts, clean environments, and I'm sure that many of them are. And they talked about, yes, it will be union jobs, and that's something something serious that we would like to take a look at. But I really think that when you look at this, when you look at the neighbors, when you look at so many families moving in here, let them also truly understand what is going to happen and what impact it's going to have on their families. When we talk about this, I think you need to have, John, we know with Engel Berman, we talked about the super block and how important it was that they went out to all the community meetings, they went to the civics, they went to the chamber, they made it a point to make sure that everybody that they met, and they met with a lot of people in the neighborhoods, to let them know what they were going to build, why they were going to build it, and how would it affect them. I think this is even more important than that. I urge you to consider that you must opt out at this point, allow the citizens to be able to go out and have all these public hearings, let them information, allow the people who are pro-sale to go out to the neighborhoods and speak to the people, allow those that would not be in support of it. Let us hear both sides, okay? Because if you opt in, then that's it, and as you know, already your Board of Education, your PTAs are asking you to opt out. I join them, and I ask you to listen to what many of these families are asking you to do. Not make a decision on whether or not it can be sold or not. Allow them to help you make the decision. Don't make it for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Ms. Alessi? Well,
you want to hold it, or do you want to just state your name?
Hi, I'm Helen Dorado Alessi, Executive Director of Long Beach Latino Civic Association. First of all, I want to thank the City Council and the administrators here for putting this hearing together. I think it's extremely important for us to hear the facts, the science, the evidence, the true story. Number two, this city is made up of many different people from many different places, including a lot of Latin America. The communication, I believe, and I think you do as well, should come out in several languages, not only in English. 17% of the population in Long Beach comes from Spanish-speaking countries. And while many of them speak English, by the way, they understand better in their own home language. So I hope we will help you, we will support you on doing this. I received 25 phone calls today. We don't get 25 phone calls for anything. We received 25 phone calls today about this. So we have at least 25 people coming to the next hearing. So I'm open for a conversation as to how we're going to communicate with the whole population of Long Beach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I saw some other hands. Yep, right there.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Christina Martin. My voice is a little off today. I'm a local parent and business owner and homeowner, and I keep hearing so much fear from some of these speakers of what could possibly happen if we were to opt in or if dispensaries were to be allowed in Long Beach. But I could tell you that, excuse me, sorry. I could tell you that that's not the whole picture. No one's trying to paint a rosy picture of what this building will look like. You know, cannabis helps everybody in all different ways, whether it's medicinal, recreational, and coming from Long Beach, who has drunks walking up and down the streets that scare me personally very much. I don't drink alcohol, and see what the West End looks like on an average night. I think it's pretty ridiculous that we're afraid of these modern buildings or rosy pictures that might be coming into town. I think that I would just wish that the City Council, who I very much respect, and I think you guys do a really great job of letting everybody speak and listen to everybody's opinions. I just wish that you would also do your research as well as I'm sure you are, but I just wish that you would also, just by the questions that were being asked from you before, it seems that you don't know as much about it. And if you are making a decision for the entire city, that I just would hope that you also do your research on different strains and the medicinal effects and all that of cannabis as well. And I don't have statistics like all the other people did. I'm just a regular mom and PTA mom, all that stuff. But I could just tell you that it just sounds like there's so much fear, and there really doesn't need to be that much fear about it. It's really a pretty chill, easygoing situation. And I hope that everybody just does their own education and reading about it, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The gentleman in the white mask there, yeah, you've had your hand up for a little bit.
Right. My name is Michael Moore. I'm a resident of Long Beach and a homeowner. I was going to read a statement about support of the dispensaries, but what I want to get into, it seems everybody here has said that they're all in agreement that the people should make the decision. The problem is, if you opt out, we have 45 days from that period of opting out to file that petition. New York State has some of the most archaic petitioning laws in the country. I was wondering if the city council is going to give any support to the people so that they can get that opportunity to ballot.
I'm not sure how you define support in getting a petition put together.
Show them how to write the petition.
Okay, well, I be honest, I don't, we would have to talk to somebody to find out what the requirements are for, I mean, I think we all know the 45 days and that kind of stuff, but the other formalities of it, I guess we.
It's the formulation of the petition itself. It's not the content. It really is the formulation of the petition itself. Anybody that's been in politics, which all of you have been elected, know the petitioning requirements. What I'm asking is, if we're so concerned about having the people's voice heard, we need somebody that's going to help them to have that voice be heard.
Right. I guess what I don't know, and I guess this would be a question for our Corp Counsel. I don't know from a legal standpoint if the government body is the one that can even do the petition, or if it has to come from the public.
You're a resident. You're also a resident of Long Beach, so you could sign that petition as well.
Oh, well, that's different. That's different. That's different. But as the government entity, I don't know the legalities of the government entity starting the petition. It may have to be started by, because remember, this is for a resident referendum, so it may have to be done by residents. Again,
All right,
that's
so
a question for a lawyer.
So what basically is being said is, you're all in favor of the people being able to be heard, but it's going to be very difficult for them to be able to be heard because of the petitioning requirements.
Well, it's the system, the state, we had nothing, I mean, this is what the
I
state
know, but
set up.
everybody's espousing this vote, this great vote that we're all going to have our voices heard, and it won't happen unless this happens.
Well,
So what I think, what President Bendo was talking about is kind of correct, right? So the body itself can't create the petition for the public, right? The public has to get together and do it themselves. To your point, right, each member of this council here is a resident of the city and may very well sign that petition, or not, I don't know. But it seems, I don't think a petition is as difficult as it's being couched as. I think
They were tossed in Watertown. Watertown had petitions going around for the referendum, and they were hit by the council.
Right.
They were challenged and thrown out.
What I would say is it requires some specialty, right? Some expertise. You need an election lawyer or someone who knows how to formulate
Exactly.
petitions. There are plenty of residents in this city who are attorneys or know attorneys, right? So if it seems you're very enthusiastic about it, so if you can drum up that support, do you know what I mean?
I hear you. I'm going to try. I am going to try. All right. Thank you anyway.
Yep, no problem.
All right, thank you. All right, who else has, Mr. Lynch? Oh, sorry, I'll get to the woman behind Miss Alessi next. I keep missing her.
Yes, James Lynch, Long Beach resident. Two things struck me today while I thought about coming down here. I was coming anyway, but this morning at 6 o'clock on Channel 12 and again at 6 o'clock on Channel 5, there were medical experts talking about the increase, saw a spike in that, in both those instances. Quite frankly, this is just the wrong time to do this. It may be the time for the state, but it's the wrong time for Long Beach to do this. There's a great concern from many people. Maybe they couldn't be here tonight, maybe it wasn't publicized enough, but you're going to do it two more times, and we appreciate that. But you have an obligation to the residents and to listen to them. And quite frankly, John, you didn't have some of the information that you asked from the first speaker, from the cannabis management. You asked them, what's the projected revenue? Now, this is the key speaker coming down to talk on this subject. She didn't have an answer. She went and sat in the back, came back up, and said, well, we believe it's going to be in the 7 figures. That's an arbitrary number to just pull out of your hat. If you're going to come here and you're going to press this issue and ask the residents to follow through, then you should have the information. That's the key number. From what I'm hearing from a lot of the people, even from government. Well, you know, we could use the tax revenue. But you don't know what it is. You haven't even a clue to what it is, unless you do, and you want to share it.
Nope.
So this is the wrong time. This is the wrong time. As many have spoken, Ms. Vining, we can always do this later. We've got to see where we're going. We're still coming out of a pandemic. People have been crushed financially, job loss, family abuse. I think, well, he was here a minute ago. Where did the commissioner go? He just left.
Stepped into the hallway there.
He can speak to that. These issues are all true and they're all real. And then we have the concern, and I would hope that before the commissioner leaves tonight, you would ask him what he sees, and I'm sure he's talked to other police departments in conference about how are they going to police this? How are you going to regulate it? There'll be laws on the book, but how are you going to regulate it? Are we going to hire more cops to police these places? What's going to stop someone, just as they do with alcohol, what's going to stop someone from getting their older brother to come in, or go into a distributor and buy beer, and then they go around the corner and hand it to them? What's going to stop that from happening here with cannabis? There are many things that have to be considered. And obviously, there's not enough time in this one session, or there's not even enough time. We've gotten ourselves so far close to a December 31st issue, and without having the key information here that you must opt out, and let's pick it up when it has. And if the voters decide yes, then they decide yes.
Okay, need you to, time's up. So, but thank you.
All right, now that the commissioner came back, I would just ask that before we leave tonight, that he get up and speak to what he sees and how the police department or law enforcement itself is going to manage this.
Okay.
Because it's going to be an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And did you move? There you are. Okay. I know I kept missing you. Sure.
Sure. You know what, I'll just hold it. Yes, you are. You do a job as a roadie after this. All right. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna start. Yep. Okay, good evening. My name is Melissa Gibson. I've been a member of the Long Beach community since 1991. I've also been a cannabis educator for the last 5 years. So if anyone has any individual questions about cannabis plant, the definitions between hemp and marijuana or any of those things, please feel free to ask me. I'm happy to share that with you. I just want to be very clear. I think there's a lot of misinformation here. The MRTA has passed. Legalization is here. This is not about whether or not cannabis and adult use marijuana sales and consumption should be legal. It's whether or not this municipality has the ability to not opt in or opt out by December 31st of cannabis sales and consumption sites. But I want to remind you, even if you don't opt out, the board still has the same powers it always has. I know this town speaks alcohol. You might not speak cannabis, but it's pretty clear. I've lived here for a long time. So I'm going to help you to understand how they're similar and how they're different. So as the board is deciding who gets the opportunity to put a store or a consumption site, you still have to do your due diligence. You still have to do environmental impact studies, and you have control over the time, the place, and the manner of operation for these businesses. The MRTA, in all of its wisdom, already provides health and safety considerations for operators, including for things like noise pollution. You would still have to weigh in on all of the applicants. You could certainly, even if the state gave somebody a license, you can say, no, we don't want your particular business here. You have the same municipal ordinance and regulatory powers that you have in any situation, even if you don't opt out. The other thing is, I'm also a victim of Sandy, and I'm also a victim of the opiate addiction crisis. It's very close to my family, and I can tell you that if it weren't for cannabis, members of my family would be dead. Opiates and alcohol can kill you. They bind to receptors in your respiratory system. Guess what doesn't do that? Cannabis. You cannot die from taking too much cannabis. You can be sick, but you will not die from it. So unless there's a big influx of people coming in here and just getting very upset that we have so many alcohol liquor stores and bars, I want you to really understand what we're talking about here. Guess who can't go into cannabis dispensaries? Children. Guess where children can go? They can go into restaurants here that sell alcohol. They can go into liquor stores. The MRTA states that they may not. Not only that, but all the sales are tracked. When you go into a store, you have to give your license, and the actual product purchase you make is tracked. So if you are someone that was going from store to store to store, trying to go over your daily limit, that would be caught. We don't have something like that for the alcohol industry. And nobody is for youth consumption of cannabis. And some of the biggest proponents against youth consumption are those of us in the industry, but we understand what is and what isn't true.
Okay, your 3 minutes are up, but thank you. But, you know, feel free to come back at the next hearing also and... Yeah. The gentleman in the back of the room there.
Want to hold it, or you want to?
Hold it, sure.
Yeah. Just state your name.
Sure. Hello, my name is Mark Alessi. I'm the local representative for GTI who spoke first. So I usually don't speak at these events, but I heard them referenced a lot since Rebecca spoke and left. So I want to clear up some misinformation that was said, and also I want to answer some questions that, one, Rebecca couldn't answer, as a publicly traded company in terms of potential revenue for one store location. And you asked about the New York State market. So the Rockefeller Institute out of University of Albany pegs the potential market in New York State at $4 billion. That's a completely intrastate economy because of the federal regulations. Like you said, it has to be grown from seed to sale, all has to be done in New York State, which also creates a very large supply chain. That this is not all about just stores, but it's about the auxiliary companies around a $4 billion industry. It's really hard to find an intrastate $4 billion industry in any other sector. The estimated percentage of adult users is pegged around 67% in most national studies. People are talking about doing a referendum. I think the board might be able to vote to put a referendum out there, but what the town of Riverhead did, which is a whole lot easier and a whole lot less expensive for the municipality, is they set up a polling website. They polled their residents. It was overwhelmingly for, and that's why they voted to opt in. You don't have to vote to opt in, but you could decide whether or not you're going to opt out. You had questioned on whether or not, that's something we'll follow up on, the data on the parking issues in terms of timing in stores, and we'll try to get you that data. But I want to put one thing out there. Whether you opt in or opt out, and this is not to sell GTI here. I don't know where GTI is going to end up on Long Island. They're talking to a number of municipalities, but they try to accommodate any municipality that knows that they're a national organization with a lot of experience in the sector so that they can answer misinformation. So the concern over whether you opt in, opt out, you can't opt out of home delivery. You can't opt out of your residents growing it at home. You can't opt out of your residents crossing the border and coming back. The only thing you'd be opting out of is having a store, having the jobs that are created, and having the revenue. And so if you look at the revenue, this is not speaking to GTI specifically because I'm not permitted to do so, but each store location would typically in New York State generate $1 to $3 million. Maybe Long Beach can support 2-3 stores, and then you're going to have diminishing returns. So you're talking about $5 to $7 million in revenue annually. And I could provide some supporting data from around the state that speaks to that. And then finally, in regards, I would just say in closing that the 10 larger companies like GTI that already have medical licenses can begin operating immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and we have information that was asked. I'll leave it in the back for anybody that's looking for written material. send you a electronic copy. If
Yeah.
anybody wants it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What's it? Okay.
With your permission, President Bendo?
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner, can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Commissioner of Police Ron Walsh. I just want to, first I want to apologize for not being in the room. Someone had a problem with the return date on a ticket, so I had to kind of deal with that. Just in response to what you were saying, I'm very apolitical in these things, and I'm going to remain that way. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a decision for this city council who represents the people of this city, and if it gets that far, for the city to speak for themselves. I don't use marijuana. I'll never use marijuana in my life. That's my personal stance. That's my personal opinion. There are plenty of people who feel differently. Okay? I will say this. If the city chooses, on its own, through the process that they have, to bring marijuana into the city as a dispensary, I'll be asking for whatever resources I need to try and make sure that we can mitigate the impact that that would have in the city, whatever that may be, and we'll look at it, educate ourselves at it, and deal with it. If it does not, I will still deal with whatever ramifications it will have having legal marijuana around this city that we're already dealing with right now. Will that go up? Time will tell. I don't know. I've read studies that say that in places where they use marijuana, use goes up and use of other drugs goes up, and also the need for emergency services tends to increase. I don't know if that's going to happen in Long Beach, but I do know that whatever happens in Long Beach, this police department and this administration, I'm certain, will give me the resources necessary to handle it. That's about as fair as I can be on this subject without taking a stance. Any questions from the council?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Gentleman right here.
Sir?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Sir?
you spoke already. I'm sorry.
Sir?
No, is there anybody else
We
want
need-
to speak?
Yeah.
That hasn't spoke before? This gentleman here?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Out of fairness, you should allow somebody who hasn't spoken the opportunity to speak.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure. Hey, council, everybody in the audience, how you doing? Jason Katz. So I am a local business owner, and I am a town resident. And I sat up here with you guys about about 2.5 years ago now, and I told you the benefits of hemp and CBD and all the wellness and what we're going to do for the town and how we're going to get people off of addictive opioids and help older people with pain, inflammation, stress, anxiety, and things like that. And that's what we've done. With a local little store here in town, CBD Hemp Wellness, and yeah, we've gotten some backlash about children. That's not a thing. We don't sell to children. Everybody is ID'd for certain products. There's age limits, and we are only hemp-derived right now. You know, but the amount of people that we help in this community that get off of the prescription medications, the doctors that prescribe their patients to come to our stores, it's remarkable. And that's stuff that makes me feel good. As a business owner, I have a store here in Long Beach. I've been here for about 2.5 years. I also have a store in Rockville Center. And we do phenomenal. And the amount of people that we help, and I will be having a petition signed on customers that are for the recreational legal aspect of this. And the other thing is the amount of, things that you have to go through to be approved. There's so much scrutiny as a person, as a business, to go through applications. And I'm going to need you guys to approve it and everybody to sign off for the use permits and for social injustice and for other, local things that are going on. It's just not like, oh, here, we're going to give it to this random person. No, there's a lot that goes involved to get this license and to open up a facility. And I really don't know the economic impact of how much foot traffic. Yes, It will definitely have some great foot traffic. I don't know how much benefit it's going to bring as far as financially to the town, or, it definitely will. I don't know how many they're going to open. They could limit it to a certain amount within a certain square foot. It's all meant to be seen. But, we have attorneys drawing up applications and things like that. And one of the things that we are doing is getting ballots signed for residents of this town. I'm a resident here for 7 years. I have a 24-year-old daughter who's a medical graduate who works at the store right now, and she is one of my best people. She is very, very knowledgeable. Go in there and talk to her at any time. But I also have a newborn who is going to be going to the schools and everything else. And believe it or not, some of the PTAs from the local schools ask for donations and take my products and then go distribute them or give them out as raffles. And I've been donating to them for the longest period of time. So I believe there's a lot of scrutiny behind the industry and a lot of people that don't have the proper education. And they really should, because there's so many different health benefits with the products. And I even help, believe it or not, town workers and people that work at the schools. And you wouldn't even believe all the local residents that come to me and help with their different things. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure you guys will make the proper decision.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else that hasn't spoken yet? Want to make any comments?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Did I get fired and not know it?
No. I'm just down here by myself.
Do it.
With
All right. So we're gonna leave the. We could talk after, because you already had spoken. But we're gonna leave this hearing open. We're not closing it.
Hearings.
And we'll continue it at the next meeting. So, and
Motion to close?
and we will make a motion to close.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Delory.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for your input. And like I said, we'll continue this discussion.
Do we, John, is there a date for the discussion? Is it December 7th?